Hello and welcome to our special panel discussion on the budget 2025. Well, for the crypto investors, although there is no change in the 30% taxation on cryptocurrencies, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has proposed to increase the threshold from 7 lakh to 10 lakh for the tax collected at source, which is the TCS, under the Liberalization Remittance Scheme. This means Indian investors can now allocate up to 10 lakh in the digital assets like the US-based spot Bitcoin ETFs without facing higher tax deductions at source. A big move that promises to make the crypto markets more accessible, less burdensome, and increasingly attractive. In this game-changing for the crypto future, is this the game changer for the India's crypto future? So joining with us is Sonu Jain, Drupad Das, and Varun Sethi. So budget तो एक बहुत बड़ा एक advantage था ही, और in fact as we are talking about a broad-based steps. So with this increase in TCS threshold for the digital assets investments from the 7 lakh to the 10 lakh, Sonu, how do you see this move impacting the accessibility and attractiveness of the crypto investments for the Indian investors? If you can just begin with.
Yes, absolutely, Manoj. So when it comes to Bitcoin ETFs and cryptocurrencies, so the taxation in India is very, very harsh. So the 30% tax rate that is applicable with no loss offsets available, and on top of that you have 1% TDS, which blocks traders' capital. Now to overcome this, investors have found an alternative which we have covered in our previous videos, which is Bitcoin ETFs, which not only enjoy a favorable tax benefit in the sense that they are taxed at 12.5% in terms of long term, but also they are benefited in terms of favorable regulatory regulations that are applicable to them. Now the increase in TCS limit for LRS transactions, which is usually used to invest into the Bitcoin ETFs, from 7 lakh to 10 lakh.
So it's a very positive way.
Yes, it is a very big positive news.
Fantastic.
So when it comes to an investor, now we can invest additional 3 lakh rupees into Bitcoin ETF without having to pay a TCS of 20%.
Fantastic.
So which means 60,000 rupees of cash outflow, which would have gone as TCS, which the investor would have had to wait for 1 year, file the return and then get a refund, does not apply now because the limit is now increased from 7 lakh to 10 lakh.
Fantastic.
So investors who are looking for a safer alternative to investing into Bitcoins through Bitcoin ETFs are benefited.
Oh, Bitcoin ETFs में invest कैसा करें?
9 Point Capital.
Fantastic.
So at 9 Point Capital, we have streamlined the whole process so that investors have easy access to invest into Bitcoin ETFs from India directly.
Fantastic. And joining with us is Mr. Varun Sethi. Welcome on the show, Chief. If you're talking about India is reviewing its stance on the cryptocurrencies, and since we all are aware that due to the shifting attitude towards virtual assets bolo या फिर कुछ stance bolo in other countries, Ajay Seth, India's Economic Affairs Secretary, told Reuters on Sunday the review, which follows crypto-friendly policies announcements by the US President Donald Trump, could further delay publication of the discussion paper on cryptocurrency that was due for the release in September 2024. So for our viewers, is India's review of its crypto stance comes amid the growing global acceptance, as we always talk about the Trump and the other wider global implications. So what changes do you anticipate in the upcoming discussion paper, and how do you think this will impact the India's crypto investors and the market?
India primarily can be looked at from three perspectives. One, I believe that the current regulator / the enforcement agency, which is FIU, Financial Intelligence Unit, where you make the submissions for getting the approval from FIU. I do believe that looking at the global developments, the FIU's role has to be transformed or changed, relooked into. I do believe that the kind of queries that they pose to the applicants, it is more like an enforcement agency and not per se a regulator. So India lacks a regulator from that perspective. And if you look at the global regulators with, let's say, the US government promising to set up a sovereign wealth fund, which can also look into investing in cryptos and bitcoins as part of the portfolio. So looking at those kind of developments, I do not foresee a sovereign wealth fund coming up in India, but I do foresee a change in nomenclature of the role of FIU, slightly transforming from a regulator to more like an enforcement agency. And based on that, point number 2 would be that there is surely a need for a national level regulator. This national level regulator is primarily important to oversee the entire activities. Currently, it's more enforcement activity driven, and it is not regulation per se. So that is lacking. The third is primarily an add-on to the national level, the budget that came out on 1st of February 2025. As promised by the finance minister, the tax code is expected to go on a massive overhaul, and that is likely to happen in the second week of February. From that perspective, I do believe that there is expectations of reporting and standardization of the process, especially for centralized agencies or exchanges. India should look into the getting back those smart brains, and that should happen by these three methods. First, changing of the nomenclature of FIU from regulator to enforcement agency. Second, national level regulator to be created. Primarily, SEBI would be the right person to actually create a sub agency under it. And third, the tax code reforms, primarily standardizing the reporting and the disclosure norms.
If we have to look at crypto regulations in India today, the main place we'll have to look at is the tax laws. And in the recent budget and through the finance bill, it's becoming clear that India is amending its tax code to further make the crypto taxation regime more nuanced. Firstly, the definition of the word virtual digital asset has been expanded and ambiguities have been removed. So that's one step. The second step is requiring all entities, persons who hold wealth in crypto to disclose that. This could be individuals, could be businesses, could be developers who receive crypto assets from abroad. It could be a whole host, and I suspect that there are a lot of people in India who have crypto and they've just never been required to disclose this so far, and now this requirement is coming in. So there will be a regulated entity for this purpose. And that will give us a composite view of what the entire crypto pie of India looks like. What is actually the size of its holdings? What is the size of its industry? I hope to see metrics coming out of this, and those metrics will help us manage and measure our future growth, as well as manage the industry and the holdings and the industry and the usage as a whole. Because when we look at this industry, we find that the maximum users of India of crypto are in India, and that's a trend that's shooting up. We also find that the maximum number of people building crypto for projects around the world are also in or of Indian origin or from India, working from India. So there is a lot to be gained by adopting this industry. The game for crypto is still on, and India needs to play a proactive role in building an industry here systematically, as well as then regulating it and then helping it grow, because we need to take a growth first approach as well, because regulating and taxing is all fine, but then you need the industry to be robust so that the regulations can also grow hand in hand with that, and the public good then is hopefully achieved through this process. And if I had to wish for one thing, I would wish for positive, clear regulations around token issuance, because that is a big activity that the crypto world does, and that is how the crypto world takes on a digital first virtual global role. Is the token. The token is the interface that plays a very, very key part.
Fantastic. So, Sonu, do you think this policy shift will simultaneously trigger a greater institutional and foreign investment in India's digital asset market, particularly in products like the US-based spot Bitcoin ETFs, और बहुत सारे ETFs भी सोनू अभी आने वाले हैं. तो इनफैक्ट ये मूव का कितना बड़ा रेलेवेंस होगा फॉर इंडियन इन्वेस्टर्स who are investing abroad?
So one aspect that we look at, Manoj sir, usually is that investors are increasingly positive towards ETFs. Now there are multiple reasons for that. One reason is Bitcoin or crypto assets directly are currently seen in a negative sense by the Indian government, whereas Bitcoin ETFs are securities, which means the risk of money laundering is less, which means the risk of fraud is less, risk of cyber security risk is less, and these are governed and approved by US SEC, which is the equivalent of India's SEBI. So investors are increasingly positive, and they have been allocating funds to this. So investors who do not want an unregulated industry's risk are increasingly moving towards Bitcoin, Ethereum and other ETFs that are available in the US. Now this increase of 7 lakhs to 10 lakhs also shows that the Indian government is more forward looking in terms that they want people to spend the money invest the money and earn more profit so that the treasury is also filled.
Fantastic. And my next question to you is, given the new penalties on the undisclosed crypto gains, and how do crypto investors ensure full compliance that can help avoid hefty fines, especially with the 60% tax and the 50% penalty during the tax inquiries?
Yes, so this is a very crucial amendment that has taken place in the budget 2025. Now this is also
इसको थोड़ा सिंप्लीफाई करें क्योंकि ये कैसा है कि बहुत कुछ कॉम्प्लिकेटेड सिनेरियो बनते जा रहे हैं यहाँ पे.
Yes. So the penalty section जो कि है 158B which deals with undisclosed income. Now this section is part of one elaborate scheme which is called as a block assessment. So just to simplify, there are two types of assessment that happens for an individual. जब आप टैक्स फाइलिंग करते हो आपका दो तरह से असेसमेंट हो सकता है. One is the regular assessment, जहाँ पर when you file the ITR you get a acknowledgement and then the return is processed and then you get a letter that no demand is due. Second one is block assessment, जहाँ पर 3, 4, 5, 6 सालों का मिला के they do the assessment at once.
Fantastic.
Now this happens only in two cases. एक तो where there is a income tax raid in your house, in your office, in your building, wherever you are. So if there is a income tax raid, or second point where a requisition is made for requesting information, and during that process it is found out that you have undisclosed income spread across multiple years.
Got it. समझ गया.
Now this is not something new, this was already there. So previously अगर आपका कोई undisclosed income मिलता कि आपके घर में income tax raid हुआ और 10 ledger wallets मिल गए जिसमें 100 BTC है जो आपने कभी डिक्लेयर नहीं किया,
उसके ऊपर 70% का फाइन मारेंगे.
Yes, उसके ऊपर there will be a fine of 60% of tax and then penalty सब कुछ मिला के it goes up to 78%.
78% हाँ?
78%. अभी जो इन्होंने चेंज किया that is they have introduced it into block assessment, क्योंकि पहले block assessment नहीं होता था, आपको हर साल एक एक करके जाना पड़ता था टैक्स ऑफिसर को. इसको स्ट्रीमलाइन करने के लिए उन्होंने ब्लॉक असेसमेंट में डाल दिया कि नाउ इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट कैन इजीली फाइंड आउट कि आपके किस साल में क्या परचेस था और सारों का एक ही साथ में टैक्स कैलकुलेट होगा. सो दिस इज द ओनली चेंज, नॉट दैट समथिंग दैट इन्वेस्टर शुड वरी. अगर आप ट्रेड करते हो जस्ट फाइल योर इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न और अपना ट्रेडिंग डिस्क्लोज इट इन शेड्यूल VDA सेक्शन ऑफ ITR एंड यू विल बी सेफ.
तो ये डायलॉग तो मतलब अभी रेलिवेंट नहीं ना, डॉन को पकड़ना मुश्किल ही नहीं, नामुमकिन है. मतलब अभी तो सब पॉसिबल है यहाँ पर इंडियन टैक्स के अंडर. ऑलराइट, सो हाउ दिस थिंग इज एक्चुअली वर्किंग गिवन द ग्लोबल शिफ्ट towards more crypto friendly, how do you think India could navigate its crypto stance to remain competitive in the digital asset space?
Surely. So I think two major things have happened during the President Trump's campaign to become the next president. One, the promise to set up a sovereign fund. That sovereign fund would be eligible to invest in bitcoins and other digital assets. So that is one thing. Even before the campaign or during the campaign, before being elected, he actually used Solana blockchain to issue Trump coins, and then Dr. Melania also came up with a certain coins. And that's real-time community engagement that you can look at. So that is one way of using blockchain for enhancing your image during that campaign. So what can India learn? How can India navigate its regulatory framework? From that perspective, I do believe that the first major thing is that there is no singular authority in India. Every exchange is trying out different things. They claim to have self-governing policies and those kind of things. So I believe that the first thing is that while we do have financial intelligence unit, but that's more like an enforcement agency and not a regulator per se. So India needs to have, first of all, a national level regulator, should ideally be falling under the powers of SEBI. And second, the role of FIU should be more on enforcement agency, recovery of funds, detecting scams, frauds, those kind of things. And at ground level, one interesting thing that can be done is that just like India runs Atal Tinkering labs, at the ground level, India never allowed a sandbox to operate which included cryptos. So if a sandbox can now be allowed to include cryptos or virtual digital assets per se, that ground level work can then snowball into something bigger. Third, I think we did observe brain drain, experience brain drain happening in the last 3-4 years with 1% TDS being introduced in India, TDS, resulting in massive movement of founders and projects from India to Middle East. And I think if the upcoming tax code, which is likely to happen in the second week of February 2025, if they can rethink on this 1%, it can bring back the liquidity in the Indian exchanges. And based on that, if on one side you're able to bring back the liquidity on the Indian exchanges, and on the other side you're able to streamline the tax reporting, standardize the tax reporting pertaining to the disclosure norms that these centralized exchanges have to give to the regulator or the enforcement agency, that would streamline the entire process.
In G20, India stated that it will consider the global consensus and pass regulations that reflect that consensus. And it appears that India is doing just that. Very recently, we did hear that India is going to reassess its approach to regulating crypto assets in view of international situations. And it's probably also important to note that while we look west, we should also look east, because we are seeing countries in my neighborhood, which is Bhutan, with its Gelefu Mindfulness City, that's taken a very measured yet positive approach towards crypto assets and the crypto business in general. We also have Thailand, we have Vietnam. These are all turning out to be East Asian hotspots for crypto activity. And they are all competing in a race that even India is part of to attract the crypto business. Because we have now seen in this year, in 2025, that crypto is a force to be reckoned with. And it needs to be regulated, it needs to be dealt with, and the public good needs to be kept in mind while we are approaching crypto in this manner.
Moving on, the next question is with the introduction of section 285, as you're talking about the other sections, the 285 BAA mandating the crypto exchanges and the intermediaries to report transaction to tax authorities. So how do you think this is going to affect the transparency and the regulatory landscape for the crypto markets in India?
So this aspect of introducing 285BA, the thought process behind that is to comply with the G20's recommendation to have a crypto asset reporting framework which is globally standard, which can be shared across multiple countries. So because India is a member of G20 and is a signatory, so they have started the phase 1 of the project, which deals with getting all the data from crypto exchanges in India, technically called as reporting entities, so that they have first layer of data. Now there is a confusion. When TDS is already there and you are able to track it, why do you need 285 BAA?
Exactly.
Now the reason
replicate
is,
hota na usko?
Yes, so there is some level of overlap.
Okay.
In the sense, in TDS only the transaction details in INR are captured. तो अगर मैं BTC INR ट्रेड करता हूँ ऑफ ₹10 lakhs, तो TDS में सिर्फ 10 lakhs का रिफ्लेक्ट होता है, ये रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं होता है कि मेरे पास BTC कहाँ से आया, मैंने BTC को INR में कन्वर्ट किया उस ट्रेड में, तो these things are not captured. Now that is where section 285BA will come in. एक्सचेंज को पहले पता करना होगा कि जो वॉलेट में पैसा पड़ा है मेरा है, उसके बाद they have to find out मैंने उस एक्सचेंज पर क्या क्या ट्रेडिंग किया, कौन सा कॉइन बाई किया, कौन सा कॉइन सेल किया, कितने वैल्यू पे किया. इट विल बी डिटेल्ड रिपोर्टिंग जो एक इंडिविजुअल के अपने KYC, अपने जो भी उसका नेशनलिटी होता है उससे टैग होगा एंड विल बी रिपोर्टेड टू द इंडियन इनकम टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट.
समझो ये टोर्नेडो कैश मिक्सर से अगर आया तो कैसे मालूम पड़ेगा?
नहीं, देन जो भी जिस भी इन्वेस्टर के अकाउंट में आ रहा है, तो अगर फॉर एग्जांपल मैं अपने इंडियन एक्सचेंज में डिपॉजिट करता हूँ फंड्स व्हिच हैव कम फ्रॉम टोर्नेडो कैश, तो इंडियन एक्सचेंज मेरे से
इंडिया में तो बैन नहीं है, वो इंडिया में तो यूज कर सकते हैं.
इंडिया में इट कैन बी यूज्ड. तो एक्सचेंज विल आस्क मी कि ये सोर्स क्या है, जो XYZ वॉलेट से आ रहा है फंड्स हमारे एक्सचेंज पर आपके नाम से, ये कहाँ से आ रहा है, ये किसका वॉलेट है. तो दैट इज वेयर ट्रैवल रूल कम्स इनटू पिक्चर, जो कि G20 का ही डिजाइन किया हुआ है. तो 1 by 1 पीस बाय पीस ये पूरा जो गवर्नमेंट का रेगुलेटरी फ्रेमवर्क है टू रिमूव अनोनिमिटी फ्रॉम क्रिप्टो ट्रांजैक्शंस एंड मेक इट ट्रांसपेरेंट. So that is slowly coming into play.
All right, as we wrap up in today's riveting discussion on the budget 2025, it's clear that India's evolving crypto landscape is at a crucial turning point. With the increased TCS threshold and a likely shift in the policy, India is positioning itself to make digital assets more accessible and attractive. But with the global trends pushing for more crypto-friendly regulations, the next few months will be crucial for the crypto markets. Will India adopt and join the digital asset revolution? That is a moot point that holds the key to India's future in the world of cryptocurrencies. That's all there is in this special interaction. This is Manoj Dara signing off. But keep watching 3.0 TV for more such interesting panel discussions and insights from the cryptocurrency world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.